Hey guys, this is Jordan Downey, the director of Techno Western, which you're about to watch. I'm going to go ahead and do a little commentary and walk you through how we made the short film. It's important in this opening scene here to notice on the back wall, there's a poster of a cartoon character. That guy's name's the Techno Cowboy. There's a mask on the frame right, and on the TV is the cartoon, an animated show called Techno Western. It's all fictitious that we made up and had designed for our world here. So the title of the movie and the cartoon all play a hand that will pay off in the end, but remember those seeds that have been planted here. The boy right now is putting together this BB gun with duct tape and a belt and a strap. All of this was totally based on my childhood. I'm sure a lot of you out there can relate to this too. I used to put flashlights and little pocket knives almost as if they were a bayonet on the tip of my BB gun. I wouldn't actually do anything dangerous or silly with it. I would just go out and target practice, but in my small town, I grew up in Ohio, literally very close to where we shot this. I used to fantasize about that kind of stuff. And Boba Fett and bounty hunters, obviously I like bounty hunters with critters. So I wanted to do a realistic portrayal of a bounty hunter. And what if I, when I was a kid, was obsessed with, let's just say, Boba Fett or Star Wars, and I went out onto some sort of excursion or mission pretending to be Boba Fett, and it didn't quite pan out the way I had hoped, the way that my cartoon or my favorite movie would have depicted it. That if I'm Boba Fett, I'm heroic and I win. But in real life, when you actually encounter some sort of a danger or a violent act, it's not going to probably work out how you would have expected or how Hollywood glamorizes it, certainly if you're an 11-year-old boy. That's his older brother there, played by Justin Rose. Dylan, the boy here, is actually a first-time actor. He'd never appeared in anything before. My mom knew his mom, and when we were looking for actors, they led me to him, and we didn't really even do a formal audition process. I asked his mom to take some videos of him just talking about his favorite characters, and it's basically like a mini me, honestly. We got along great, and Dylan's just interested in being a filmmaker as well, and he's just a natural in front of the camera. I mean, there were things with him hitting his mark and his eye line, stuff that like you didn't have to tell him, but he knew it, and he'd never taken an acting class. I mean, he watches behind the scenes videos and stuff just like anyone else, but he is a student of movies and cinema, and he's watched so much stuff that it's amazing to see what a kid actor or a younger actor understands about filmmaking without having been taught it in any sort of an educational way. But it's just they get it from watching movies, and that was fascinating to me and one of the best parts about working with Dylan. So we're now down in the boys' bat cave, let's just say, his detective lounge, which was also something that was really important, that we had a true detective vibe. When I watched that show, season 1 especially, I remember thinking, we can do Techno Western. I had sat on this for many years, but I didn't quite know how to do it. I hadn't seen like that detective, small town out in the woods kind of film that was done in a dark and twisted and almost horrific way that had the tone of a horror film. And I hadn't seen that done quite yet. And when I saw that, I was like, that's how we do it. That's our in. So that was a big inspiration to us. This is a drone shot here, actually, and we are approaching this awesome location in this big factory that was out in Ohio. So we had our drone and flew it over there, and it looks great. Interestingly, the character that you just saw walking across the field is actually Justin, and the reason for that is because we didn't want to put Dylan out here in harm's way or just walking around through the woods and through this abandoned place. So that's actually Justin for those 2 shots, and you can't really tell when it's that wide. He looks small enough to be a kid. Now, this extension cord and some of these other little clues, there were a few shots and scenes that were cut from the short film. Some of that isn't as explained as it probably should be, but in the end, we kind of just cut around some of that stuff because I felt like it wasn't completely crucial to know exactly what he's doing as long as you get that he is tracking someone or something down. He has a plan. This isn't random. He's not just going out and perusing the woods and stumbling upon this. He had all of that research. He was preparing his BB gun. He's out on a mission of some sort, and he has found his target. This was the most important scene of the entire short film because we knew that it had to be truly scary, and it was also going to be a longer sequence. The whole short film was shot with just Kevin and I. Kevin, the DP, and we both wrote it together, and I was directing, and that was it. We didn't have any crew member. We were doing sound, everything. So when we were shooting this scene, it was literally Kevin, myself, and Dylan, the actor. And we were shooting late at night, but we weren't going to keep Dylan up all night long, so we would work into the night, but we still had to do this scene over the course of a few days. We couldn't get it all in one night. So he has searched around the car. He's seen a clue inside. There was a purse in the back seat. That might lead to further clues, but he has to go investigate, and 3 of the 4 doors were locked. Now that's going to be a problem, dropping the revolver, because that might have been his best protection against some sort of threat. Now that he's in the back seat and investigating the purse here, we get into that. Now, I had mentioned some of the scenes that we did trim down, one of which was a little bit more of a backstory on the person that was in that ID that we cut out, and you don't really see who he is actually looking for, which is a victim of our bad guy. Now we have the reveal and the scare. The triple zoom thing is something that you don't see done very often, but I kind of like the idea of bringing that back. It's now too late for him to escape. He's trapped inside the car. The only door that is unlocked is up front, and if he goes up there, the guy's gonna see him. He's got to turn off his flashlight. He's got to stay quiet, hold his breath, and hope for dear life that this guy doesn't notice that he's hidden back here into the back seat. The villain here we wanted to keep off screen as much as possible. Now he's clearly up to something suspicious and weird in the woods. We didn't want to know exactly what, though our backstory was that he's probably burying somebody. He's using his car as a generator to power some sort of light out there so he can dig a grave in the middle of the night, or God knows what he's up to. But there was something interesting about the gas cans, the electric cord, and this guy being out in the darkness that gives you enough of a what the hell is he doing out there that the specifics weren't really important to us in this short film. That pulling of the knife is actually Dylan's idea. I've got to give him all the credit for that. He had the idea that he should get in some sort of a blow here as the guy turns around and attacks the kid. So we wrote that in and ended up shooting it, but that was Dylan's idea to actually get a knife wound in. Now the thing that's the most maybe controversial, but was also the reason that we ultimately decided to make this movie, was what I talked about earlier, where if a little boy went on some sort of a quest pretending to be a bounty hunter, it's probably not going to work out for him. Now, we didn't want to get anything too gratuitous as far as the kid dying. And that was something that, as dark as that was, it felt right for the movie. It was the reason that we wanted to do it, because it just felt honest and real. What really drew us to that whole idea was the switching of point of view. So we would be following the boy up until this moment. Now, we don't confirm that he is alive or dead, but now at this point we're switching to the point of view of the bad guy. And that was something that we thought would be really interesting, that essentially for all of Act 3, we are going to go off and spend time with the villain.
Police have identified Morris Emery as their suspect, who they believe may be using a stolen tan station wagon. Now, officials say they have been unable to reach the boy's older brother after they initially split.
We always wanted to keep the entire movie very subdued, very subtle. this was going to be a very different kind of movie for Kevin and I. And it was something that I really wanted to do, which was just that much more subtle approach. It was a thriller, but it still had that odd horror vibe to it, and that it would be really scary and creepy. It would get under your skin like the best X-Files episodes would. So our guy has come back, and God knows where he lives, way out in the woods, way out in the middle of the nowhere. He's driven so far away, and he's finally made it back to this weird, bizarro trailer sanctuary where he lives in, and he's watching TV. And my favorite part of the entire short film is coming up here next. Now, he's a little paranoid. He's hearing dogs barking, he's hearing noises, he's gonna look out the window. Clearly, this guy is a little frightened that maybe somebody could be after him. So he changes the channel here, and what do we see? Techno Western. This is what I'm most proud of the entire short film, is the callback to the cartoon here. The boy's story parallels the cartoon. The boy is a bounty hunter, the boy is going out for revenge, and he pins the bad guy down. It doesn't work out for the boy. But off screen, what we don't realize is that there's a separate revenge story taking place. And that was also something that drew us to the whole project, is that there would be an off-screen revenge story. Like I said, we would switch point of views from the boy to the bad guy, but don't forget, there's the third character out there, and there was a gun left on the ground at the crime scene. So that third character might show back up, and that third character's story just might parallel the cartoon Techno Western. Here's our bad guy hearing footsteps outside. Someone has finally come for him. I thought Justin did an incredible job here in this moment. It's really difficult to do what he has to do because I told him from the start the camera was going to hold on him for a long time. I don't remember how long this shot is, 30 to 60 seconds, but it's longer than your average cut. And that was always the intention, is that we would hold on him, watching him deliberate over this decision and feel the pain that he's going through in this current moment. And I thought Justin killed it. The decision for him to not pull the trigger here was a tough one. We had 3 different endings, but this was always the one that felt right. This was always the one from my gut that I always wanted to go with. And the reason for that is when you get to this moment, when you have cornered the bad guy down, I don't believe, and I've never been in this situation personally, I don't believe it would be as easy as just pulling the trigger. I think at the end of the day, you're looking at another human being, and the man that we're seeing is potentially even less than human. There's some sort of a sadness about this monster, this bad guy. It was more of a Frankenstein's monster kind of a feeling that I wanted to have. So we always liked the idea that he would not pull the trigger. Pulling the trigger and killing the guy is the easy thing to do. We wanted to refrain from doing the obvious. A lot of people ask about this final moment here. Why the waves? Well, if you remember that earlier scene on the front porch between the 2 brothers, the boy asks, can we take the boat out this weekend? So this was always our little farewell to the boy. Maybe this is some sort of a trip onto the afterlife, but there was something that was poetic and calming and thematic about holding on the waves. Like with most of this movie, this one, I would say more than any movie I've made, this one really came from the gut and the heart. I would say that as opposed to it didn't come from a technical screenwriting craft and a structured outline kind of standpoint. I mean, it still hits all of those points, but we really kind of wanted this one to come from inside of us rather than come from our hand or from the pen or from our brain. This came from the soul. So some of these decisions just felt right, even though they're maybe a little bit harder to explain or rationalize, and it doesn't work for everybody. But like I said, this movie was about us trying to put our soul on screen and not our brains. I hope there's something you can take away from the short, and maybe you can relate to it having a childhood like this boy, but it's something I'm really proud of, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Thanks for listening.